Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how the heck are you? You will be hearing this almost the end of July 2024. How's your summer going? Is it hot where you're at? I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed and I'm disappointed. And I'm going to let that be okay. Jen and I were scheduled to record. She had something happen last minute. She was about 15 minutes late showing up. She let me know she was showing up, and I had a sense that it was not going to work to record. And I'm just talking about what goes on with me. This is not about Jen, her value, anything like that. But I think it's important to talk about this. And we've talked about this. She has many more moving pieces in her life. She makes time to record, but she had a client up until the time that we recorded. She has a client after we record. Her kids came home. I don't know when they were supposed to come home, but they came home just a little bit after the time we were going to start recording. So I know she needed to greet them. And in this time that I was waiting, and I suspect this is part of my, I don't know if it's my PDA or my rejection sensitive dysphoria. And PDA is called pathological demand avoidance, but it's pervasive or persistent drive for autonomy. It's a nervous system dysregulation where we have a need to feel like we've got autonomy over things. And so me waiting and then wondering if she's going to be able to show up, and then anticipating being disappointed if she's not available or needing to process, and knowing that we have a limited amount of time to record. It's not uncommon for me to make a backup plan so that I have a sense of autonomy to keep my nervous system regulated. And Jen and I have talked about that in some ways this is a challenge in our relationship. And I think this happens for a lot of people, that Jen's ADHD is kind of what drives her car. So scheduling, timeliness, making commitments about things often are more challenging for her, where autism drives my car. So I'm timeliness, being where I say I'm going to be, doing what I say I'm going to do, are very high values. And it's not that those aren't values for Jen, or if you have ADHD, it's not that she doesn't not want to show up. It's just that more things pull at her. And my kids are out of the house. My husband's retired. I have a very light schedule. She sees way more clients than I do. She has a lot more moving parts. So it's okay for me to have my feelings. And I think it's important to remember what the context is. Like, all of this can exist in the same space, but it is not uncommon for me to be prepared to not have my needs met. And this is not about Jen. I think that this is about all the things that go on with me. And I'm naming it because my guess is that this may go on for you as well, whether you're aware of it or not. We weren't even really sure what we were going to talk about today. I think what I want to share about is just where I'm at in terms of my attachment, my OCD, my preoccupation with Jen, and how I'm working on regulating. I also have some information that I'm trying to decide if I want to share or not. I have a lot of things I want to talk about, but I don't know if I should. I think I'm a little bit unclear about what Jen and I have recorded about. I know that we talked about I'm able to self-regulate when she and I are not in connection, but I haven't been able to maintain that connection with her. So I've really been practicing that. I think Jen has really been very, very conscientious about letting me know when we're going to connect, showing up, being much more mindful, because sometimes days can go by and we don't really connect, and she's able to hold me in her heart. But our regular pattern of communication is we communicate daily, sometimes a few times a day. That may not work for everybody. That's okay. I have some judgment around my needs, and that's part of what I'm working through. And part of what happens with this OCD is I feel like I call it the OCD lie. And the OCD lie is that I need to talk to Jen in the morning in order to feel regulated. It feels like there's more to it, but at this point, that's all that I can identify with. What I do know is I appreciate when we're able to have some kind of connection in the morning. And I can tell you over the last week, sometimes what that looks like is me FaceTiming her and she picks up and she goes, "Hey, I'm at a restaurant with somebody. I'm not able to talk. I'll catch up with you later." Or she's picked up and she says, "Hey, I'm at home in the middle of something. I can't talk, but I'll catch up with you later." Or sometimes I'll wake up and there's a polo from her and maybe I'll leave a polo back or I'll FaceTime or I text her. So it's not that we have to talk in person, but it is this touching base. And what I do every morning when I wake up, before I look at my phone, before I do anything else, is I check in with kind of my younger parts of how am I doing? How grounded am I? How connected to me am I feeling? What am I wanting and needing? So that I'm not waking up with this, I'm not okay until I talk to Jen. This feels really vulnerable, by the way. Most of what I talk about feels vulnerable. So I always do these check-ins first with myself. And I'm also trying to get less information about what's going on with her. I think part of how I manage is, do you have the kids? Do you not have the kids? Is your partner going to be there? What's your schedule look like? And I think that's my OCD wanting to have control over what's going on. So I have not been, if Jen shares, of course I want to hear what's going on, but I'm not tracking her schedule as much. I have a thing about time and logistics. I like time and logistics. It makes me feel grounded. I do this with all kinds of people, not just Jen. This morning when I woke up, I texted her. I thought, I'm okay if we don't talk. I don't know what's going on if she has clients. I texted her and let her know I'll come back to this, but I've just been in a vulnerable place. And I let her know that I'm still feeling kind of vulnerable, just wanted to connect. And then I went ahead and refocused and did some other things. I was aware of feeling dysregulated, and I know the things to do when I'm struggling. And it's just to refocus, to get on with my morning, do what I need to do. And what I kept reminding myself of is the truth. Jen and I are connected. She said it's okay to talk every day. I'm grounded. I'm important. I matter. I can self-regulate and I don't need Jen to self-regulate, but it feels better when we connect. I have things in my life. I'm a solid person. People are lucky to be my friends. I feel embarrassed saying these things, but these are some of the things that I remind myself of. The OCD lie that wanted to come in was, Jen has decided this is too much and she really doesn't want to talk with you every morning and she's just not available. And so I'm able to go like, oh, that's the OCD lie. Thank you, and move along. When I start processing those kinds of thoughts, that feels like that's the key to the door that I open that will pull me into a spiral. And I'm really starting to be able to recognize what these OCD lies are. Part of my autistic brain likes data, and I like being able to think about stuff. And early on, I would allow this stuff to be data and it would pull me in and I would spiral. And I just don't want to do that anymore. So I was in the living room stretching my back out and Jen called. And we had a really nice talk. I was able to stay connected. I didn't have that sense of disconnection. She's been so consistent about showing up that I know that she cares. And somebody was having a crisis this morning, and that's what she needed to attend to. Out of curiosity, and I don't normally do this, and I will hopefully circle back to this, it had been an hour. So that's a fair amount of time. I did feel very weepy when we got on the phone, and I asked if she had the capacity for me to process what was going on, and I cried. And she said, do we need to do repair work? I'm like, no, we're good. I just was very dysregulated and I did all the things and I told myself all the things, but this is nervous system dysregulation. And my nervous system got dysregulated. And part of what works for me is crying to get regulated. Movement helps. I already took the dogs for a walk this morning and I did the things that I know are really helpful for me. So we had our connection. And what I really want to acknowledge is this was different this time. Now, had it gone on longer, I don't know how long I would have been able to manage and regulate, and maybe the same thing would have happened. Maybe a rupture would have happened. Part of what we've talked about is I go through this healing process. Rupture and repair may be part of what we have to do, and Jen is okay with that. Do I want to have to do rupture and repair work? Not really. But I need to predispose that may be something that I need to do. I noticed probably about a week ago, I went into what I call an expansive state. I think that the level of dysregulation had been so high and so hard that I just kind of kicked into high gear. I really made a point of making sure that I moved my body almost every day. And I knew that I needed to reach out and get a little bit more social and connected. I just felt like it would create more balance. And I've been wanting to do some activities, join some meetups, and I did. And for about the last week and a half, I've been in what I call a very expansive state, very social, doing far more social things, new things than I normally do. And it felt really good. There's a part of me that always feels like, oh, I've arrived when I get to these places where I'm just enjoying meeting new people. I'm enjoying doing new things. It feels very energizing. I know that I do not maintain this expansive state and that at some point I will drop back into a contractive state. I think it's easy to use words like depression and maybe even use a word like manic. It does not feel like being manic or hypomanic to me, but this may resonate for some of you, or maybe this is language that you've used before. And I've talked about historically, when things get stressful, I will often go into a shutdown, which is part of being autistic. We have meltdowns where we act out, or shutdowns where we just kind of stop managing, get very quiet, and don't do a lot. And I've really been working on making sure that I do the things that make me feel good and make me feel connected to myself. I suspect that coming out of autistic burnout early at the beginning of this year, learning that I was autistic in August of 2023, having all this trauma work come up, the trauma work has been probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And then with this overlay of the OCD, it's been very, very, very challenging, very emotional. My thought is the only way out is through, so let's do it. But it's been very hard. It felt nice to go into this very expansive space, and I could feel myself kind of dropping down out of it, dipping back into what is more of my baseline. The other day, I could feel my energy just getting smaller. I did a meetup, met a couple people at the batting cages, which I love. I have so much repressed anger and aggression, and the batting cages really help. And I had a great time when we met the first time. We went out for Himalayan food. I had just a beautiful time. And then we met again at the batting cages this last weekend. And as we were sitting visiting afterwards, I found myself questioning, like, am I enjoying this? Do I want to be at home? I'm allowing myself to stim more. So we were sitting at a picnic bench and my leg just wanted to fly away. And I did ask, because I know it can be disruptive. If someone's shaking their leg, it makes the whole bench move. The people that I were with were fine, but I noticed myself feeling kind of disappointed, a little bit irritable, like this is supposed to be satisfying and fulfilling, and I'm not sure that it is, and I don't know if I want to leave. And I just came home and was just more quiet and irritable. The other thing that contributed to this, that it took me a day to catch, is I think I told you the author that I love, Catherine Ryan Hyde, and I read this book. I was listening to a book on Audible, and it was really a nice place of comfort for me. And her books have always been, I don't want to say predictable because I don't predict the outcome, but they've always been books that don't have unpleasant surprises in them. And this book, towards the end, had some things in it that were upsetting to me, and I don't think that it registered to me that it was upsetting, that I had expected this sense of cohesion and community to continue. And through my lens and what I'm going through trauma-wise, it felt like abandonment to me, major abandonment. And I think that activated me, but it didn't register consciously. So as I'm noticing my energy kind of slowing down, then I finished this book that I'm thinking is going to give me comfort, and it leaves me feeling unsettled. And then I didn't sleep well. I had a dream about my son's dog, Zeke, that was disturbing. Like I woke up just feeling rattled. I think I had reached out to Jen in the morning. I'm not clear about all the events, but she was going to be driving and said that we would connect. What I heard was it was 11 a.m. And I went to Aquafit, and it was about 11:15, and I wanted to cook this meal, but I thought I want to be present while we talk because we hadn't had time to connect. And so I ate something else, and then I'm kind of putzing around. I know sometimes she runs 5 to 10 minutes late. So it's 5 after 11, 10 after 11, 11:15. I'm not sure what's going on. I know she's going to be driving somewhere. I think maybe at about 20, 25 after, I texted her and said, like, hey, just touching base, or you're going to be getting on the road soon. And I texted her and she didn't respond. And so I waited a few more minutes and then I called her. She said, I don't need to leave till 11:30. And I said, fine. The other thing that's going on is I have a friendship thing going on, which I may or may not talk about. And that was very distressing to me that morning. I went to Aquafit. It was really in my head. Something happened with a friend and it's bringing up stuff for her. But instead of her owning that it's bringing up stuff, it feels like she's putting stuff on me. And I went to Aquafit and was feeling very distressed about it and thought, I didn't do anything wrong. This isn't my stuff. This is her stuff that she needs to work through. We will talk, but I had explained to her a little bit more, some clarification, but this is her trauma. And I was able to work through that and enjoy being an Aquafit. So all of these layers of things were kind of building up on me. And normally I would have gone back and listened to the polo to confirm, like, did she say 11 or did she say 11:30? And I thought, it doesn't matter. I thought it was 11. She said 11:30. I'm going to trust that. But again, by the time we connected, I found myself feeling dysregulated and tearful. And I asked if she was in a space to process with me. Again, I wasn't angry with her. This didn't activate my attachment injuries. It's just that I was managing all of these things that were causing unease. And then this misunderstanding about time. So by the time that we connected, it was 45 minutes after the time when I could have fixed something to eat, but didn't want to because I thought we were meeting at a different time. All these things were dysregulating to me. And again, how I regulate is I have a cry. And then it was nice. I sometimes have a hard time taking up space in relationships that I tend to be much more present for the other person. Being connected and hearing about them makes me feel connected. But I really took some time to talk about this challenge that I'm having in this friendship, the dream that I had about Zeke. And it wasn't until I was talking to her about this book that I realized that the words that I was using, it felt like there was abandonment. And then it kind of all made sense of why I was struggling and why things were feeling hard. I'm sharing this with you because I think that we can often be impacted by things that are going on. And then I just felt my energy plummet. I was supposed to paddle yesterday afternoon and I wanted to go. The person I was going to paddle with canceled, and I was a little bit relieved because I was feeling tired and having to do everything that it takes to get my kayak and all the gear together. I did feel a little bit relieved. And I just had to take it really slow yesterday. Again, I'm feeling tenderhearted. My nervous system is reacting, and I'm grateful that I have the type of schedule in life that I was able to make those adjustments and just know that this may be a little bit of a harder time, but I know what to do when this happens. I make my world a little bit smaller. I heard somebody use this analogy, and I really like it. It's like if you have a coffee cup and it's only halfway full and somebody bumps you, the coffee's not going to spill over and you've got room for a little jostling. But if you were feeling overwhelmed, taxed, tired, stressed, dysregulated, it's like that coffee cup is filled to the brim. And if somebody jostles you, it's going to spill over and that's going to have an effect. And we just don't have a lot of room for that spillover when our cups are totally full. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I had this great expansive time where I felt flexible and social and really enjoyed it. And now I'm feeling more tenderhearted. I'm feeling like I don't have as much room. I am a little bit more activated. There are a number of other things that I haven't shared with you that when Jen and I talked, we talked about how many things right now are feeling out of my control. And some of them it shouldn't be happening and it just is. And I just don't have control over it. So there are a lot of factors. And like the best thing I can do is to be compassionate with myself and to just know that I need to slow down. That means more crocheting, more books on tape, more time watching shows that are comforting, making sure I'm getting movement in, and just doing the things that feel nurturing to me. I'm feeling very hopeful about all of these things, and it feels very positive to me to be able to, in this moment, it could change tomorrow. And I was having some fear about what happens when I drop out of this space and what if I don't feel connected and what if I get dysregulated and what if we have to do rupture and repair work. It's like, we'll do it. It's okay. And if that's built into the expectation that those things will happen. We will get through. We will manage. It makes it really okay. My hope is that in sharing this with you, that it validates and normalizes some of the things that go on with you. And if you are someone who processes deeply and has conversations going in your mind very, very much, are there things that you're grabbing onto that are not helpful? And often I feel like the lie is that I'm gathering data. And a perfect example would have been going back and listening to Jen's Polo to see, like, did she say 11 or did she say 11:30? And part of what helps me and my mind relax is to go, it doesn't matter. It was a misunderstanding. I got dysregulated. I needed to cry to get regulated. And we moved on from there. And these places that I feel like that OCD door wants to open and pull me in and get me thinking about things and just knowing that that's not going to work. And with this challenge with this friend, there is a certain amount of thinking and processing that is helpful for me to prepare for our conversation. And then I also have to be mindful about, am I in a loop and am I overthinking, and is this helpful for me? And can I just redirect my mind? I feel like I've had pretty good relief. The last episode that we recorded, I think on Friday, I had talked about I'd had 2 days when I'd been able to move my body and I was not feeling preoccupied and I was able to be really present. And I had a little bit of that yesterday morning in the pool, but then I was able to redirect and really enjoyed being in the pool. And I feel like I've been able to be pretty present for the other ways I've been moving my body since then. So I'm so incredibly, incredibly grateful to get some relief from all of this, because this is just, it's been hard stuff. And we can do hard things. And when we go through hard times and then we move out of it and we have some relief, it's so easy to have that fear of, I'm going to drop back into it again. It's going to get me. And we are going to cycle through things. Being human means that we have these times when we're more expansive and confident and less bothered by the things we struggle with. And then we dip back into it. Does it mean it's bad? Does it mean it's wrong? No, it just means that those are what the cycles are. And if we predispose that, neither one of those is better or worse or preferred or good or bad. We're just going to do what we need to do, and that we can manage when things are hard. And when things are good, I've heard people say, like, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I really love this expression of in this moment, because that is what is true for me in this moment. And that could change in the next moment. I think there's something about our brain that wants things to be either or. It's either all good or it's all not good. And when we can allow ourselves to be in that messy middle and know that we're going to swing back and forth between those two extremes. And the goal really is for me to be in the middle and to be moving instead of being at one extreme or the other extreme. And how can we allow for that and create self-compassion in a room? Like when I had that day when I thought Jen and I were going to talk, and then it just kind of took me out. Can that be okay? I recognize not everybody has the privilege. If you've got young kids, you've got a busy job, you've got people counting on you, lots of reasons why that may not work for you. And this is coming from a place of privilege. I get that. And I don't know how to address that, but just creating space to be exactly where I'm at is what is helpful. I think the final thing that I'm going to talk briefly about, and then I'm going to wrap this up, is, and this is about like honoring that part of me that feels really fearful. I told you that my son Josh is in the military. He's training. He was cleared, medically cleared. So he's doing air rescue training right now. Some of the work that they do is underwater in full flight gear with boots, helmet, dropping off of a 10 to 15 foot platform, being underwater, having to do things. And when when he was telling me about what he was going to have to be doing, like I felt my chest just tighten. I couldn't breathe. And I have a fear. I love the water, but I do have this fear of all the times I was a kid or in the ocean and swallowed water, couldn't get my breath. In this way that I'm telling you about leaning into your feelings and settling into them, I can do that with my feelings. I do have this fear about the water and, drowning and not getting air. So this is my stuff. And when he was telling me about what he had to do, I felt my chest get tight. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to drown. And that scares me. I have lots of death fears. I don't know if I've told y'all, and I don't know if this is OCD or this is just my anxiety or my attachment injuries, but every morning my husband and I sleep in separate rooms in separate parts of the house. And he generally comes in at a certain time and we talk and connect in the morning. And sometimes when I wake up and I get up before he's come in, I have this thing of like, oh my gosh, what if he's dead? And the kitchen is between where he is in the morning and where I am. And so I look for the coffee pot because if there's coffee in the coffee pot, I know that he's not dead and he got up and he had coffee. And the other morning I was in the kitchen and it looked like the coffee pot hadn't gotten turned on. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's dead. He wasn't. He finished the coffee. I have this about my mom if I don't see her. Like, what if she dies and I don't know? So I'm always asking my husband, did you see my mom today? So these are just things that I live with. And do I wake up and check? No, but it's there and it's present and I just manage it. Yesterday, I was talking to Josh on the phone and he was talking to me about the training that they're going to be doing. And I said, I'm having an anxious mom moment. Do you have room for anxious mom thoughts? And he said, sure. And I told him, I have this fear that you're going to drown. Are there people that are standing by that are going to save you if you drown? He's like, absolutely. They're very cautious. They have things built in. And then he told me that his goal is to pass out underwater because that means that he's really pushing himself. And what I have a deep appreciation for is there's room for my fears. There's room for me to express my fear. And it's not that he feels he has to protect me or coddle my fears, and he's telling me where he's coming from. And both of those things can exist in the same moment. Obviously, would I consciously choose for anybody that I care about to do things that I think are risky? Of course not. Do I have that choice? No, I don't. I've told you that my motto is love your kids, love who they love and what they love. And I support my son in doing what he's doing. Would I make different choices? Of course I would, but that's not my place. And I love this and have this deep appreciation for how there can be room for all of our stuff and we can talk about it and name it. I think that's all I have for y'all. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's how your brain is wired. You are enough. There's nothing that you need to do to change. All of the messy parts, the parts that feel not okay to you, all of those things that you've been told are not okay about yourself are fine. In this moment, you are exactly perfect, lovable, capable, and enough in this moment. You have a right to be dysregulated. You have a right to be regulated. You have a right to feel joy, to solve problems, to be concerned, to do the things that you love, to be bored and restless, to be stimmy, jumpy, moving all over the place. You have a right to all of your feelings, all of your wants. Doesn't mean you're going to get them met, but there's nothing wrong with them. You're not for everybody. Everybody's not for you. Have you found your person? Have you found one or two of your people? And if you have areas or places where you feel like you're not fitting in and belonging, are these your people? Because we're probably not going to feel connected when we're not with our people. I think that's all I have. Have a blessed day.